Hello and welcome to CultureCast. In this episode, we will be discussing aspects of the film Sunrise. This film was directed by Partho Sengupta, a film writer and director who was born in Mumbai in 1965. He worked as an art director and production designer on feature films, TV series, and commercials across India. He studied film at the FEMIS in Paris, and his first feature film was Let the Wind Blow, and his second feature film was Sunrise, which is the one we'll be discussing today.
Yeah, it won the Best Film and Best Cinematography Awards at the 2015 Durban Film Festival, Black Tulip for Best Film at the Imagine Film Festival, and an honorary jury mention at the Munich Film Festival. This film was nominated for the 2015 Asia Pacific Screen Academy Awards, and after Partho Sengupta lived in France for over a decade, he moved to Sydney, and this is his latest film, the 2014 film Sunrise. The film Sunrise is set in India, and it's about the child abduction that is a reoccurring problem in the country. To elaborate more on the subject, we go to our film critics Olivia and Carter. How are you, Carter? How are you, Olivia? Can you tell us a little bit about Sunrise?
So the story is one of an unresolved self-conflict of a police investigator named Joshi, whose daughter has gone missing. And the compelling film is one of the first underground films by Indian director Partho Sengupta since his 2004 film Let the Wind Blow. And Sunrise is a psychological drama in the slums of Mumbai. The film cleverly weaves our protagonist's fantasy and reality so that neither can be taken at face value. And the result is an intense, very well-performed tale that will doubtlessly spark debate in India, where, according to the most recent government figures, a staggering 53% of children are reported to have experienced sexual abuse.
Yeah, so in the actual movie, Joshi perceives his daughter's captor as a dark, shadowy figure constantly escaping our mustachioed policeman in a series of on-foot chases which leave him empty-handed. Joshi must cope with his wife, Leela's grievances as the more days pass without their child. His stress is exacerbated by the silent boy outside of the police department, Babu. His character holds a glum frown as he battles domestic abuse at home. Every night, Joshi finds himself in the rainy Indian streets. This leads him to a nightclub called Paradise, where there are underage girls that are forced to dance for leering men. At this point in the movie, the focus shifts from Joshi to the viewpoint of Naina, a young girl who has just been kidnapped and trapped in the housing compound behind the club. Sengupta eventually merges the two characters' paths as Joshi storms the stage at Paradise, following the fleeing of young dancers through their hidden stage exit. And then Joshi catches the ever-elusive shadow figure and battles it in a poor display of special FX, where Joshi's shadow and his foe grapple until a victorious Joshi emerges. Joshi saves Naina, embracing her as if she were his lost daughter, Aruna, at the end.
Fascinating.
Thank you for that. So Olivia, what connotations does the title Sunrise evoke?
Well, Joshi is really blurred between his reality and his imagination because the kidnapping of his daughter has really messed up his mind. So the whole movie is very dark, and that gives the connotation that Joshi only has until sunrise to find his daughter Aruna, so that's what provokes his chase throughout the night, for the most part.
And the recurring sense of it is him not being able to accomplish his goal, and that forces him into the repetitive cycle that we see in the film.
Definitely. And that's why there's really no sunrise ever, or no kind of bright light in the film whatsoever.
Until the end, when he does end up finding his daughter.
Exactly.
And Carter, I want to talk to you about the shadow figure that we see throughout the film. Do you think that represents to Joshi something ulterior out of like character for this film? Is that a real villain, or is that a figment of his imagination?
So the two ways that I've heard that it can be taken is that it's just part of his dreams, and it's him like going crazy and it breaking into his reality, and it's just a representation of his like frustration and guilt with not being able to find his daughter. And then the other is that he's putting his anger about that topic onto just like a random person that happens to be like someone at the club. It could be that it's just like a nameless person that he's just kind of taking his anger out on a person, sees them as that shadow.
Yeah. In the film, we don't even just see this poor, sense of guilt by Joshi. We see it on the faces of the men in Paradise, I think, at some points, when Joshi confronts them, because as the night keeps going on, we always see these men come in, and this is a group of misogynistic, pedophiles, essentially.
Yeah.
They're there to see child dancers, and they come in drunk, and they come in throwing money, and Joshi's livid with this, because he can't do anything. He's trying to investigate it first. But then, when the dream reoccurs and this happens once more, we see Joshi flip out, and we see him confront the men, and we see him shoot one at one point.
Yeah.
And then all the girls run into the sin hole that we've been talking about.
Yeah.
So Olivia, what surprised you when the film cut to the inside of the brothel where the girls are in their disgusting conditions? What surprised you, though, about the film?
Yeah, I was honestly disgusted. I was surprised how just dirty it was and how many people they were shoving in one room, because there were little girls sleeping on the floor every night without blankets or anything. And I just really feel like that is child abuse, essentially, just keeping that many girls in one room. They're not allowed to leave unless they're going to go dance in the club. And they're just overall bossed around. The only things they're allowed to do are basically put on makeup. They don't really get to play. They don't really get to have a childhood, which I think is really disgusting that that's being taken away from little girls when they should just be at home with a nice family.
Yeah, I see that, and I see the connection between Naina and another girl who we never learn the name of, who's just an older girl who looks out for her because she's the younger girl here. And, Joshi, when he saves her, he's thinking it's Aruna, so there's that girl we're supposed to tie to her in this film. And I think they do a really good job with that. They tie you to her character. She's a little lost girl. And I think, you just see the shock value of the film.
Definitely
there.
shocking.
Yeah.
And they start them off so young because in the film, Naina only looks maybe 6, 7 years old.
Exactly.
She's destined for the future. They don't put them out there. When you see the girls on stage, they're 13 or 14, and that they're just there for they were in that similar situation, just destined to one day be on stage, and it's deplorable.
So Olivia, could you tell me about Joshi's dynamic with his wife in the movie?
Yeah, well, the whole family dynamic is really complicated, and it kind of got messed up after the kidnapping of their daughter, Runa. And that's honestly really understandable because families are honestly crushed by missing children or the death of a child in the family. And so the family is so devastated that I think it's almost driving Leela and her husband Joshi apart almost, because they're taking it in two different aspects. Joshi's kind of in his own mind. He's silent. He's just kind of going about his day, but he's thinking of things that remind him of his daughter, while Leela is still in the point where she thinks Aruna's still around. So she's going clinically insane as she reads to no one. She's talking to herself. She thinks she's pregnant again. And everyone is just kind of delusional by the end of the movie.
Yeah, and you see that throughout the film. Leela, she's heartbroken by her daughter being lost. And that's why we see Joshi at these clubs with pure anger on his face. But I want to ask, when you see the girls on stage dancing, what do you think audiences are supposed to feel, Carter?
So, I think this is kind of like a take on a larger problem in the real world with underage girls in India and other places. And it just makes you feel disgust and you realize that this actually happens in real life, and even if you don't see it every day, it does happen in India. It does happen in other
parts
places.
of the world. Yeah, it's a travesty.
And I think it really does make you empathize with Joshi. You understand why he's so upset, and you understand his frustration in the movie and stuff like that. When you actually see it, it kind of makes you a little uncomfortable, and it kind of makes you understand what he's really feeling, because his daughter could be one of those girls.
And are there any other films you feel that really capture this, like Sunrise, capture the effects of kidnapping and that movie itself?
So I have my opinion that this is kind of like I thought this was a more like psychedelic version of like Taken, only it's just not as doesn't have as happy of an ending, obviously.
It's a little harder to follow as a plot line.
Yes.
I'd say
Yes.
it's Taken on acid, maybe.
Yeah.
One
Yes,
example.
exactly.
Yeah, that could be it, right? Now we're going to cut to Annie and Jesse, our other film critics, who are going to talk to us about the format of the film. So, what is the lack of Joshi speaking throughout the film? Like, what does that mean in this film?
I feel like it kind of shows that how reserved it is, and then like in the entire movie, it's kind of just like within his mind, like what's going on in his imagination, and then like how he wants to get his daughter back, but he couldn't, and then all the struggle he has.
He's got a lot of inner turmoil, I agree. Like, he's got a lot to deal with. He's coping with issues at home. He copes with the inner struggle, the emotional battle with it. I'm sure when he goes and does his work, which is literally finding, little girls,
Yeah.
like his own, that's probably going to take a real big psychological toll.
Yeah.
And you're supposed to, emote with that in this film, and I think they do a good job of that. They let you, see it from his eyes for the most part. It's a POV shot.
And I think that because there is so little dialogue, when things are said, it makes it a lot more meaningful in the film as well. And Joshi, like his character himself, is a very reserved character.
Yeah.
So he doesn't really speak all that much.
Yeah, and in the action of the films, there's a lot of intense scenes, and there shouldn't be a lot of talking there, but there's also a lot of lulls, I think, in the film, right?
Mhm.
Wouldn't you agree?
I would say so. How would you say that how do you think that the minor level of dialogue plays into the movie with so many lulls in action?
I think the minor level of dialogue kind of relates back to the whole Joshi being a silent, reserved character. I think that he's handling all these psychological kind of trauma and just a lot of stuff in his mind that he's kind of separate from the rest of his crew, his police crew. So I think it kind of sets up this film as more of a personal battle, Joshi's personal battle against his past guilt or the fact that his child was abducted, and he feels really guilty and frustrated that he couldn't do anything about it. So yeah, I think it plays more to, I think the entire movie is the fact that the film is silent, mostly silent with a lot of action, kind of shows that, the reality doesn't really matter. So it's more about how Joshi on his own and without the help of other people is dealing with all these personal issues.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Do you think, like, Joshi has any help, really, here in this film? I feel like his staff is primarily incompetent. I mean, they struggle to handle the silent boy throughout this film, who I think represents Joshi, his, like, inner self there. And they show this young boy outside the station all the time, and they show him, struggling to really, like, say anything to these cops, even though he's being abused at home. And that you show him with his sisters later, where the cops find them, and it's too late, and there's someone dead.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think the cops not helping that little boy Babu is kind of like a parallel to how the cops are also not helping Joshi with his issues.
Yeah.
And
they're portrayed as fat, mustachioed cops.
Yeah. And also, I think it's interesting that this only link of paradise being this real place is Babu giving Joshi the paradise card.
Yeah.
So he's kind of like acknowledging.
The connotation there is that the man is, abusive to him, and he went to the Paradise Club, and he got drunk, and he enjoyed, the benefits of going there that old men take, and then Babu, we see the blood on the floor, and we see, the connotation is that he killed someone,
Yeah.
and so we're alluding to his father. And, that's where we take, Joshi's perspective into, the young boy, and you see that from all different Indian, aspects and cultures.
I would say that was very insightful. Wouldn't you agree, Gavin?
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Well, that's all the time we have for tonight. Thank you for watching CultureCast, and have a good night.
And thank you, Annie and Jesse, for coming
joining
onto our
us
show.
today.